Hi guys, welcome back to the channel, FPL Consult here, and in today's video I will be sharing with you guys my first draft for the free hit double game week 34. I am on this strategy myself, and those of you guys who are on this strategy as well, hopefully this video is helpful for you guys. We will be discussing some of my thoughts surrounding the fixtures that we have, especially the double game week fixtures, breaking them down slightly, as well as considering some single game week fixtures that are pretty decent as well, that we should have an eye on in terms of maybe bench options, or at least taking a look at some potential players we're turning a blind eye on just because we're overly focused on the double. So we're going to discuss all of that here, and then in the next section I will be sharing with you guys my free hit draft. So hopefully you guys do enjoy this one, and if you do, please do drop a like and also subscribe as well if you are new around here. I will be posting quite a couple of drafts throughout the course of this week. So those of you on this strategy, make sure you're subscribed so that you don't miss out on any of those. So in this first section, right, we'll talk about the double game week fixtures that we have here. So there are 7 teams that are doubling: Arsenal, Liverpool, Crystal Palace, Wolves, Bournemouth, Everton, and Sheffield. I think we can take Sheffield out of the equation, right, for obvious reasons. So I'm going to focus mainly on the other 6 teams. And obviously Arsenal and Liverpool, as I've ranked them kind of in the first two teams there in the double section. Arsenal arguably have the best double game week here. It's Wolves away and Chelsea at home. I say it's the best even though Liverpool are playing some other mid-tier teams. But this Chelsea at home fixture, I feel for Arsenal, is one where I could definitely see Arsenal dominating Chelsea in as well. So I do like the Arsenal double the best. It's Wolves away, Chelsea at home. Liverpool have Fulham away and Everton away. I don't expect that to be very difficult games for them, but playing at Goodison Park with the Merseyside derby could bring some challenges for them as well. But either ways, both of these two teams, Arsenal and Liverpool, have the best double game weeks here. And obviously, I feel it's very, very likely that those of us on a free hit for double game week 34 are going to triple up on both these teams. So the drafts that I'm going to show you guys in the next section will also be tripled up on these two teams. I think the main question here is whether is who we go for from these two teams, and I will touch on that later on when we discuss the players. So the next team that we have here is Crystal Palace. It's West Ham at home and Newcastle at home. So 2 home fixtures for Crystal Palace. They're pretty decent because both sides, West Ham and Newcastle, have not been very, very solid at the back recently. Yes, Newcastle just kept a clean sheet in the early kickoff for game week 33. They kept a clean sheet against Spurs, so not an easy feat. But this time Crystal Palace will be playing Newcastle at home, and obviously Newcastle's away form is not as good as their home form, right? Or in general, the defense just has not been that convincing. So I could see a couple of goals for Crystal Palace here. Maybe Eberechi, Eze, or Mateta could be on the radar. And then for Wolves, there's Arsenal at home, Bournemouth at home. So again, 2 home games for them. But Arsenal is a really, really tough one. I think in general for Wolves, a lot of the players we're going to be looking at are those popular ones like Nuri, who currently missed out completely. He wasn't even in the squad for game week 33. So what that means for double game week 34, we will only know much closer to the game week 34 deadline. But we're going to operate on the basis that him missing out kind of indicates to me that he could miss at least one of the games for double game week 34. In which case, I think it could be quite risky. So for the time being, a bit of a spoiler, but I don't have Nuri in the draft for my double game week 34 free hit. Right, so Arsenal at home, Bournemouth at home, 2 home games. The other players you can consider are Cunha as well as Sarabia. I'll touch on both of them later on as well. Right, so the next double game week here we have is for Bournemouth, 2 away fixtures for Bournemouth. So honestly, not that great of a double game week here. It's Aston Villa away, Wolves away. None of these actually scream a lot of returns for Bournemouth players. Maybe only Solanke. So he's the one that I'll be most interested in. And again, he will be in the draft for the next section as well. So Everton here, there's Nottingham Forest at home and Liverpool at home. So 1 easy fixture and 1 difficult fixture. Everton, of course, are fighting the relegation battle, and they are in the midst of, they're quite tight there at the bottom, so they need to win every game that they can. So I think they're gonna go all out for the Nottingham Forest game, and then the Liverpool game is always a very intense match for them as well. So I do think there's a decent double for them. The Liverpool fixture gonna be slightly difficult for them, but I do think that if we're looking at Everton players, is probably either going to be Branthwaite or Pickford, if not nothing at all. Right, so there we go for this double game week fixtures. Just wanted to mention a couple of single game week fixtures that some of you guys on a double game week 34 free hit may consider going with as well, because there's Sheffield at home for Manchester United, there's Bournemouth at home for Aston Villa, there's also Crystal Palace away for Newcastle, and there's Brighton away for Man City. So these are actually decent fixtures for all these teams for obvious reasons. For Sheffield United, for Manchester United, playing Sheffield at home, I could see some returns there. I mean, obviously, I'm recording this at the halftime mark of the Bournemouth versus Manchester United game, so it's not looking too good for them, and defensively they don't look very, very convincing. But I do think they could nick a couple of goals there, so maybe Garnacho, Rashford, Højlund for a differential could be decent as well. There's Ollie Watkins, who plays Bournemouth at home in double game week 34, also a decent consideration here, though he has a single game week. And then Newcastle has Crystal Palace away. Now this one, special mention to Isak as well as Gordon. They did really, really well in single game week 33. And I think if there's any player that I would back who has a single game week fixture in 34, but I think will outscore someone who has a double game week in the game week 34. I think that would be Alexander Isak or Gordon. Both of them have very, very great goal scoring potential as well as assist potential. So in terms of points and returns, I definitely think they could get a double-digit haul against Crystal Palace here. Right, so those are the ones to keep a lookout for. For Manchester City, I did want to include them as well, because I think for those of you on a double game week 34 free hit, you're mainly thinking whether to include Haaland or not. I think at least I have ruled Haaland out of my own team. I don't really think I want to have Haaland in my game week 34 free hit. But for those of you guys thinking of having him, or even someone like Phil Foden as well, right? Because when they play Brighton, generally I would expect quite an open game. We could see quite a number of goals for Man City there. Maybe you want to include Foden, maybe you want to include Haaland. Those are decent considerations as well, and I'll touch on them closer to my final double game week 34 free hit draft. But let's now take a look at my first draft and how it's looking like at the moment. So this is where I'm at in terms of my current double game week 34 free hit draft, and let's break the draft down. So the team value is 97.2 million, is a very, very cheap draft. Everyone can get to it, and it's mainly because it does not have Haaland. I don't think it's absolutely necessary to have Haaland in the draft, nor any other Man City players. I think there are good enough doubles or players that have doubles that we can forego some Man City players. So in general, 97.2 million, I don't think anyone would struggle to reach this team. And it's a 3-5-2 that I've gone with. So in general, when I was building the free hit for Game Week 34, something I realized was that there's not a lot of good striker options or double Game Week striker options aside from Solanke, right? So I have Cunha here in the draft. I will talk about him later on. But in general, it is quite hard to find standout strikers aside from Solanke. So that's kind of why I think I've gone heavy in the midfield with 5 midfielders here. And then I've gone with 3 defenders as well. So 3-5-2 is the formation we're going to go with for now. I don't foresee that changing much, but let's see how my draft evolves throughout the week. Right, so let's take a look now at the players here in the draft. I'm going to break it down in terms of the structure here first. So the 3 Liverpool players that I have are Van Dijk, Luis Diaz, and Mo Salah. So in terms of the Liverpool triple up, I think Van Dijk and Salah are definitely nailed here. It's mainly a question for me of whether I go for Luis Diaz or Darwin Núñez, who I have not included in this draft. Now I think Darwin Núñez in general, we have known him to be a very explosive asset, but in recent weeks, he just has not been performing as well. I'm recording this again during the halftime mark of the Bournemouth versus Manchester United game. So Liverpool will only play after I've recorded this video. So if Darwin goes on and scores a hat-trick or something, maybe he could be in my draft coming up soon. But I think for now, based off of the performances I've seen, I'm not convinced by Darwin Núñez. And I think Jota coming back only makes his minutes slightly worse as well. So Luis Diaz, I think, is someone who has been very, very convincing for me. He has been performing at a very, very high level, and I just like the positions that he takes up as well. So Luis Diaz, for his work rate as well as the threat that he has, for now, he is the one that I'm choosing as my third Liverpool attacker. And whether I think Jota affects his minutes or not, I think Jota affects Darwin's minutes more than Luis Diaz. And I think if Jurgen Klopp was to bench someone or was to rest someone after maybe 60 minutes, I think that player would be Darwin Núñez and not Luis Diaz. So for that reason, I'm going to go with Diaz here as the triple up for Liverpool. In terms of the Arsenal triple up here, Gabriel, Saliba, and Saka is the triple up I've gone with. I think Gabriel and Saka are pretty much nailed. So it's whether I go for Saliba as a second defensive option from Arsenal, or I go for someone like a Havertz or an Odegaard in midfield. And for the time being, I am just slightly convinced of how good Arsenal are at the back. I think defensively they look so solid that I think going double Arsenal here against Wolves as well as Chelsea, I could see them keeping clean sheets in both games as well. Right, so we're going to go with this triple up for Arsenal for the time being. But I am tempted by players like Odegaard or Havertz as well in the midfield. So we'll see how my draft evolves again as we go throughout the week. But for now, this is the triple up that I've gone with. And then in terms of other players from other teams that I think are pretty much nailed in the squad for now, it is Solanke here, who has Aston Villa away and Wolves away. He did already, again at this point in time as of recording, score a goal against Manchester United. So I do think he's definitely one of the first few names in the striker positions for my team. And he has been performing pretty well of late as well. So I'm quite convinced of Solanke as a pick. So in terms of the other players here that I haven't mentioned, I think we could go anywhere else with them. So that's the other 4 spots that we're talking about here, which is the Pickford spot, Eze, Sarabia, and Cunha up front. So you will realize that I have not included some other double game week players like maybe Mateta, etc. It's really about which combinations you want to go for and which bases you want to cover. So the way I'm kind of tackling this is in terms of Wolves players, which I do like. I think Cunha is the most explosive for me. He's already shown that in Gameweek 33, and I do like him as a pick as well. I think Sarabia is very, very decent as a pick as well. He's on most of the set pieces, and also he's on penalties. I do like his attacking threat from open play as well. So with Cunha coming back into the squad, I think that helps Sarabia. And in terms of whether his minutes will be affected, I think with Pedro Neto out for the rest of the season, I could see Sarabia, Cunha, and Huang starting majority of the games for the rest of the season. So Wolves, I would probably go with Sarabia and Cunha. It's a question of whether Nuri is fit for double game week 34, and if he's fit, and if I want to include him in the squad, then I think the player that I would let go in defense is Saliba. I would have Nuri in Saliba's position, and thereafter I don't want to triple up on Wolves, so I probably would do Sarabia to either of Odegaard or Havertz, and that would be my Arsenal triple up instead. So it kind of really depends on the Nuri situation for the Wolves players, as well as how my draft is going to look like. So we'll see what happens. So in terms of the other picks that I haven't mentioned here, it's Eze and Pickford. So talking about Eze first, if up front I already have Cunha and don't have Mateta, I'm probably going to have Eze as well, because I do like Crystal Palace's fixtures. As I mentioned just now, I could see a couple of goals in there for them. And Eze on penalties, he's on set pieces. From open play, his threat is pretty good as well, and he's coming back into form. I do like it, and I just think in general that if there's a kind of a differential in Game Week 34 that you would want, it would be Eze, right? So there we go with this Eze pick. And then for keeper, I think you could really go anywhere with this one, but what I've gone with is Jordan Pickford. For the Nottingham Forest game, I definitely think he could keep a clean sheet there. But for the Liverpool game, I think that is where he could rack up quite a number of save points. Liverpool have been quite wasteful in front of goal, and if he was to come away with a clean sheet, that would be quite crazy as well. So I do like the look of Jordan Pickford in goal, and we just generally wouldn't go for a Liverpool or an Arsenal keeper because we would want their outfielders instead. So in goal, it's really left with the double game week teams from the mid-tier teams. So it's either Everton, you're going to go with Crystal Palace, or you could also go for someone from Wolves as well. But again, Wolves, I would prefer Nuri. So there we go. In goal, I have Jordan Pickford. Now on the bench, it's Henderson covering Crystal Palace's defense. I think defensively, they're not super solid. And I do like Everton's defense better than Crystal Palace. So I have Pickford starting ahead of Henderson here. On the bench, it is Isak first on the bench, Crystal Palace away. Now, I did give special mention to him in the previous section because I really like the look of Alexander Isak, especially since he's come back from injury. He's looked really, really sharp. The moment he gets a chance, he gets a sniff, he puts the ball away. So I do like it, and I think in general, he's a player that could honestly outscore players like Eze, Sarabia, or Cunha in my starting 11 currently. So it is a consideration whether to start someone like Isak ahead of any of these players that I have in my squad currently. And then for the other two defenders on the bench, it's Brent White and Munoz currently. I have these two on the bench. I doubt I would need them, but if in any case any of the players miss out through injury whatsoever, Brent White has a double game week there for Everton, as well as Munoz having a double game week there for Crystal Palace. So that's where I would go in terms of the bench players. And in general, this is how the squad is looking like. What I would say is it definitely could change, but I don't think it would change very, very much. I think the core players that I've mentioned at the start just now, the Liverpool triple up and the Arsenal triple up, as well as Solanke up front, I think these would form the core structure of a free hit in Game Week 34. And then for the other four positions, you could really just play around with what kind of combinations you want to go for. Let's say you want to go for Mateta, you can exclude Eze. And if you've excluded Eze, maybe you could have Havertz in that position and maybe drop Saliba down to another defender. Maybe you could start Munoz instead, etc. Right? So it's how, honestly, we play around with the other positions aside from the ones that we deem are essential for double game week 34. But this currently is how my first draft is looking like. Hopefully this video was helpful for you guys. Let me know how your draft is looking like if you are on a free hit for double game week 34, as well as which players I've missed out on as well, so that I can include them for my updated draft coming up later on in the week as well. But if not, thank you for watching to this point. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, please do drop a like and also subscribe as well. And I will catch you guys in more game week 34 content coming very soon. Bye bye.